Hello and welcome to Baiju's Exam Prep IAS. A very warm good morning to everyone. I hope all of you are doing good. I welcome you all to the class number 2 of governance. I hope all of you are doing good. We'll wait for a couple of minutes. Let everyone join in the class and then we will begin. Thank you so much. All right, then once again, a very warm welcome to everyone. Those who have just joined in, a collective good morning to everyone. I have a few questions that have come up from yesterday's class. Fatima is asking, how does the 2019 amendment impact the federal structure? So, Fatima, in the 2019 amendment, one of the things done was the tenure and salary of even the state information commissioners was to be decided by the central government. So, that was the impact on the federal structure. Earlier, at least for state information commissions, their salary and tenure was decided by their state governments, but now the central government will decide even the state-wise tenure and salary. That was the major impact on the federal structure. Seema is asking what is moral turpitude. Seema, moral turpitude basically means a crime where morality has been challenged or where your morality has been questioned. For example, you have been found guilty of corruption, you have been found guilty of bribe, you have been found guilty of these kind of offenses. That means it's an offense of moral turpitude. Then Zeba is asking IPO and AIPO. Zeba, there's nothing called IPO. There are PIOs. So I think you're getting confused. There are PIOs, not IPOs. So the question is, are IPOs IAS officers? No, they are not IAS officers. PIOs are usually lower level officers. They are not the IAS officers. They are lower level officers. All right then. If all your doubts have been resolved, I welcome you back once again. This is class number 2 of governance. Yesterday we started governance while discussing the issue of transparency. We discussed how important it is for the government to be transparent, how the government needs to share information with the people whose money is being used by the government to run their projects, etc. The people deserve to know how the government is running, and that is how transparency is. We also discussed that in order to ensure transparency, there are various ways in which transparency usually works. We discussed mainly about the RTI. We discussed how the government usually, one, they disclose information by themselves through PIB or other sources. And second, if the information has not been disclosed, then the people can file the RTI. And then we discuss a bit of RTI, how the law works, how the RTIs are filed, how there's a time limit, how there's a chief information commissioners to ensure that RTI law is working fine. All this we had discussed earlier. Okay, a couple of more questions and then we'll quickly resume from yesterday's. Bhuvnesh is saying all these hand notes, all these pets hand notes written. The question that Bhuvnesh has is it important for 2028 CSE or not? See, UPSC does not change the syllabus every single year. Will they change the syllabus in 2028? I don't know. I don't even know if I will be there in 2028 or not. So I can't answer if the syllabus will remain the same as it is today and it will remain the same in 2024, 2028 rather. But yes, all I can tell you is UPSC does not change the syllabus usually. So choice is yours. You can prepare with today's syllabus or you can wait till 2028 and see what the syllabus is. Ayush is saying in the mains paper, has governance any particular question number? No, Ayush. In the mains paper, there is no particular question number for any subject. Like in GS1, you have history, geography, art and culture, society. There is no set fixed number of questions from history, no fixed number of questions from geography, so on and so forth. In GS2, we have polity, IR, governance, society, but there's no fixed number of questions from any of these. So no fixed number of questions. Usually, governance has 2 to 3 questions. So usual pattern is 2 to 3 question. It might go to 4 question also in some years. Usually does not go below two, but 2 to 3 is the usual norm. But again, there is no set pattern. All right then. So the last thing that we had discussed yesterday was about the issues in the RTI Act. What are the shortcomings in the RTI Act? How are the issues such as lack of awareness amongst the people? How are there issues such as no penalties being imposed, the law not being taken seriously? They have led to dilution of the RTI law. We also discussed how the law was amended in 2019 when the salary and the tenure were changed, because of which, again, we did not see a lot of, or we do not see a lot of people depending upon the RTI. Now, we usually have the RTI being used by either the RTI activists who want to take out some information and might use against the government, or we also see RTI being used as a public grievance tool, where you have some issue with the government personally, where you have some issue with the department personally, and you file an RTI about that. Now we'll move on to what are the recommendations that have been given to improve the working of the RTI law. Now, when you started your preparation, many people would have told you this, that reading second ARC is extremely important. Many people would have told you read the second ARC, second ARC is important. Now, what exactly is ARC? Let me first tell you this. ARC stands for Administrative Reforms Commission. ARC is Administrative Reforms Commission. So in the history of India, there have been two ARCs that have been formed. One was in 1960s and the second one was in 2005. ARC basically is a commission that is formed to suggest to the government how to improve, how to reform the administration in the country. So they give a lot of different suggestions, they give a lot of different reports to the government. Whether the government wants to accept it or not, it depends on the government. So second ARC, when it was formed in 2015, after a few years, it gave a total of 15 reports. The second ARC gave a total of 15 reports on 15 different topics. One of the topics on which they gave report was RTI. Out of the 15 reports, one report was on RTI only. Then there were reports on topics such as terrorism in India, water resources in India, local governance, how to improve personal administration, suggestions about reforms in UPSC exam, etc., ethics in governance, how to make our politics more ethical, how to make our governance more ethical. Those are the different types of reports that ARC had published. There were a total of 15 reports. Now, is it important for you to read all 15? Yes. But can you read all the 15 completely? No. Because if you combine all the 15 reports, there will be thousands of pages. So no one should expect you to read about those thousands of pages. So what we will do is later on, we will have a discussion on the summary of all these 15 reports. So we will do that later on. But every single topic that we read where ARC has said something or ARC has suggested something, we will be discussing that. Why is it important? It is important because this can be used as a suggestion in the mains exam. In a lot of questions in the mains exam, you will be asked about suggestions or reforms. Even when you are not specifically asked about suggestions or reforms, you can always add that as a way forward. Let's say there's a question about RTI. If there's a question about the problem in the working of the RTI, you can always give a way forward in the end by saying that recommendation of the second ARC, such as this, and this, should be taken seriously, should be implemented to have a better version of the RTI. So this is where second ARC recommendations are important. No, Lakshmi, first ARC is not important. It was in 1960s, too old, that is not relevant now. So that is where ARC becomes important. Writing suggestion in the main examination on different topics, because rather than writing from your own mind, it is always better to quote what ARC or some other commission would have told. That obviously makes your answer much, much, much better. So let's see what exactly did they recommend. First recommendation, repeal the OSA. We'll discuss OSA in detail today. I told you yesterday also, OSA means Official Secrets Act. Official Secrets Act of 1923. As we discussed yesterday, the government of India, whenever they want to hide certain information, whenever they don't want to share any information, what do? They say that it is an official secret and we can't share this information. A lot of RTIs every single year are rejected on this basis. A lot of RTIs are rejected because government says this is official secret and we can't share this information with you. The suggestion here is the OSA, that is the Official Secrets Act, is a very, very, very old act and it needs to be replaced. The government of India has been misusing this to hide information. Not just this, ARC suggests oath of secrecy should be repealed with the oath of transparency. Now, what exactly is this? Tell me, how many of you watched Prime Minister and Minister's oath taking ceremony just a few days ago? Did you watch it on TV or not? Many of you would have watched it, many of you did not. Even if you did not, don't worry. What I'm trying to tell you here is, when you watch the ministers or the prime minister taking an oath, remember there are two oaths that they take, not one. There are two oaths that the ministers take. What are these two oaths? First is the oath of office. So there is oath of office, that is the first oath. And the second oath that they take is called oath of secrecy. So first oath is oath of office and the second oath is oath of secrecy. Oath of office is that I will now discharge my duties as the minister as per the constitution. That is the first oath. Second oath, that is the oath of secrecy, is where the ministers say that anything, any matter that is brought in front of me as my official capacity as a minister, I will keep it a secret. So what happens here is, because they have taken this oath, ministers misuse this and they don't share any information in the RTI. When you file an RTI, the minister will say, oh, I have taken the oath of secrecy, I can't give you this information. Now, this is not why the oath of secrecy was actually made. Oath of secrecy was not made so that you should not be willing to share information or you could use it against the people. The idea of oath of secrecy was that the secret documents, etc., that come to you, they should not be misused. But the ministers misuse it and they stop giving answers to RTI saying that we have taken the oath of secrecy. So second ARC recommend that we should remove the oath of secrecy and change it to oath of transparency. That as a minister, I will be transparent. Again, it is a suggestion. It has not been implemented so far. Another suggestion ARC gives is periodic review of second schedule. Remember, we discussed yesterday about the list of exempted organizations or list of intelligence organizations. Remember, there's a long list of organizations that are exempted from RTI. where you can only ask questions either about corruption or about human rights violation and nothing else. There's a long list of IB, RAW, and these kind of agency, investigative agencies, where you can only ask questions about corruption cases or human right violations. Over the years, it has become a list that is too long. Suggestion of the ARC is that the list should not be too long. Only a few agencies should be included in this and others should be removed. Next suggestion, classification of confidential document means there should be a proper law, proper procedure should be put in place to identify what are confidential documents and what are not. Why? Because again, the government misuses this. When the government wants to hide some information from you, they will just say, oh, this is a confidential document, we can't give you this information. So, this classification of how a document becomes a confidential document, this also should be very, very clear. Government should not be allowed to randomly decide what is a confidential document, what is not a confidential document. Next, professionalize record management by setting up a public records office. Remember, we discussed yesterday one of the big problems that we have in government departments is there is no proper method of keeping digital records. When you file an RTI, even if the government department is willing to give you that information, it is so difficult for them to actually take out that information or to look for that information because the record keeping is very bad. Even today, a lot of government departments are keeping physical records. It's not as easy in physical records to just go and find information. So that becomes even more challenging. And these are some of the recommendations that second ARC has given. Apart from this, second ARC also suggests there should be a change in the selection process of information commissions. If you remember yesterday we discussed who are the people who become information commissioners. Usually these are civil servants, IAS officers or other civil servants. They are the ones who get to become information commissioners. Second ARC says that this is not good enough. Second ARC says that this is not fair. Selection committee right now is in the favor of the government of India. Remember yesterday we discussed is a 3-member selection committee, Prime Minister, leader of the opposition, the Lok Sabha, and another cabinet minister of the choice of the Prime Minister. These are the 3 people. Out of these 3, 2 are from the government, Prime Minister and another minister. The idea is that it should not be a majority of the government. So the third person should rather be the Chief Justice of India. And we should have a representation from the civil society from outside the government as well. Interestingly, the other suggestion is we should have at least half of the information commissioners who are not from civil services. Now, this is very, very, very difficult for the government to implement. Because the government, see, every single government, doesn't matter which party it is, every single government always has certain favorite officers. It may be because of the way that they work, it may be because of the way that they listen to the minister, but every party has certain favorite ministers. Because you will see, every political party, after some time, asks certain ministers to resign from bureaucracy and join as politicians. Look at, for example, Ashwini Vaishnav, railway minister. Look at our foreign minister. These are people who have been civil servants in the past. Every single state you will see these examples. If you are from Odisha, you would have seen how the ex-chief minister of Odisha brought a civil servant and said, you come and join my party. Same has happened in, let's say, West Bengal, where TMC has done this. Same has happened in Tamil Nadu, where DMK has done this. So political parties, whenever they like some civil servants, they would ask them to join their political party. So the idea is civil servants on paper have to be neutral, but in reality, they are not always neutral. Every civil servant might have some inclination towards some political party. So suggestion of the second ARC is in the Information Commission, at least half of the people should be from non-civil services background, so that they don't just favor any political party as such. Another suggestion, the PIOs, public information officers, should be given proper training. See, right now what happens? Every department appoints one of their officers as a public information officer. The responsibility given is that whatever RTI comes in, you will collect that, you will make sure RTI is replied, so on and so forth. There is no special training given to PIOs right now. Also, the people who are PIOs, that is not their only job. They already had a job in the department. Over and above that, they were given the job of PIO as well. So there is additional pressure, additional burden without any extra incentive and without any extra training. So the idea is that there should be proper training given to them of how to handle the RTIs going forward. Also, since the PIO is a lower level officer, it becomes difficult for the PIO to ask senior officers to give a reply to the RTI. Let's say an RTI comes in, which has to be responded by the head of the department. The PIO can't get the head of the department to reply, because whenever the PIO requests head of the department, they will say, oh, come back tomorrow. They will not even give them time to listen. So the idea is, let's make a senior level official as the PIO so that he or she can actually extract a reply. So PIO should be at least at the level of deputy secretary or the director. Again, this is a suggestion that we should have at least deputy secretary or the director as the PIO so that they can at least ensure that people respond to them. If there are some RTIs that are filed, we should be, or they should be in a position to pressurize the seniors in the department to actually get a response. Also, we should set up a national coordination committee to coordinate with all the state information commissioners. Please understand, all these are just suggestions. They have not been implemented. All these are just suggestions by the second ARC of how to improve the RTI law. They say that all the state information commissions should coordinate with each other, should work so that they can learn from each other. One can learn from the other's mistake. One can learn from the other's experience and ideas as well. That is how the suggestion is. Now, a few other things about the RTI. First, are political parties under RTI or not? In other words, can you file an RTI asking a question to a political party, not the government? The answer is no. They are not under the RTI. Why? The political parties, their argument is that we are not the government. We are not running on the taxpayers' money. The entire reason why the government should be under RTI or why the government should be answerable is that the government is running on the money of the people. People have given the taxes and the government is running on the base of those taxes. So the idea is that the government should be responsible, the government should be answerable. But when it comes to other political parties that are not in power, their argument is that we are not taking money on the taxes. So how is it fair for us to be under the RTI? Political parties thus are not under the RTI. Now, there is a counter argument here given. I'll give you a counter argument. There is a position of leader of the opposition, right? If you look at the leader of the opposition position, it is a position that plays an extremely important role. As leader of the opposition, you are a member of a lot of appointment committees. You're a member of the appointment committee of the CIC, the CVC, the Lokpal, CBI, Election Commission of India. As a member of the opposition party, as a leader of the opposition, you are a member in all these committees. So you have a role to play in the government. You can't say that we don't play a role in the government. You still have a role to play in the government. And the argument is that is why they should come under the RTI. But again, the reality at present is political parties are not under the RTI. One of the other reasons why they don't want that is they do not want the sources of their money or sources of their donation to be disclosed. Political parties say that if we are under RTI, how do we get our money? Our internal political strategy, our internal voting strategy or polling strategy will be out in the public and we can't afford to do that. And that is why Political parties are not under the RTI. Again, understand the difference. Government is under the RTI. Political parties are different. They are not under the RTI. Second question, is judiciary under the RTI or not? Now, it's a difficult question to answer because there is no clarity here. Why? A few years back, when we had Chief Justice Ranjan Gogoi, who's right now a Rajya Sabha member, he used to be the Chief Justice of India. When he was the Chief Justice of India, before leaving office, before retiring, he had decided that office of the Chief Justice of India will be under the RTI. He said that questions in the RTI can be asked to the Chief Justice of India's office, but there is no clarity on what kind of questions can be asked. However, there have been some comments given by Supreme Court. Now, please try and understand this. If you are the Chief Justice of India, there are two responsibilities that you have mainly. One, obviously, you are looking into the work of the Supreme Court or cases in the Supreme Court. Other is that you are the administrative head of the court. So, Chief Justice of India is the administrative head of the court. The RTIs that are filed are for this purpose. If you have any question about the administration of the Supreme Court, not about the cases, you cannot ask any RTI or you cannot ask any question to the Chief Justice of India regarding ongoing cases in the court. That is not allowed. You can only ask about the administrative work of the court. Shreyank is saying judiciary is not a part of state under Article 12. Yes, it is not. I'm not sure why you are drawing that comparison. In the RTI Act does not say that state is covered under RTI. The word state is not given in the RTI Act. So I'm not sure why you are drawing that comparison. Yes, judiciary is not under the state, but again, the RTI law does not say it applies to state only. So the question that can be asked to Chief Justice of India are mainly about the administrative side of the court. However, even then, the Chief Justice of India is well within his rights or her rights to decline that particular RTI as well. The Chief Justice of India said that the Office of Chief Justice is a public authority. It will be open to RTI, but RTI should not be used as a tool of surveillance. Means you should not use RTI just to keep an eye on what is happening in the Office of the Chief Justice of India. You should be allowed to ask questions, but it should not be just because you want to know what is happening in the Chief Justice of India's office. If you genuinely have a question, the Chief Justice of India would reply. But again, see, you have to understand the politics behind this. I gave you the name of the judge that did this. It was Chief Justice of India Ranjan Gogoi. Now understand something. Supreme Court judges retire at 65 years of age, right? We usually see when a judge is about to retire, especially Chief Justice of India, when the Chief Justices are about to retire, they usually in the last few days give a lot of important judgments. Why? Because everyone wants to be remembered in the history. Ranjan Gogoi was again the Chief Justice of India when the Ayodhya matter was decided. Ayodhya matter, Chief Justice of India office under the RTI, all these were decided by him in last few days. He was just about to retire. Just before retiring, he announced all these things, he decided all these things. Some people even criticized it at that point of time, saying that Chief Justice of India is in such a hurry. He, before retiring, he just wants to make sure that people remember him. So this does happen, that some decisions are given at the court which may not be because they are important, which may not be because they are necessary right now, but it may also be because of the timing. And in this case, this was the issue of the timing. So right now, the fact is, Office of the Chief Justice of India is under the RTI for administrative work, but most of the RTIs are rejected when the Chief Justice of India believes that this is interfering in the work of the Chief Justice Office. Now, the other part is one of the reasons why Chief Justice of India or judiciary rather is not under the RTI is if you bring judiciary under the RTI, it will have even or it will increase the burden of the judiciary even more. With respect to the Chief Justice of India, there is still no clarity over what kind of questions can be asked. There's still no clarity what questions can be asked under the RTI, the Chief Justice of India. Second, it increases the administrative burden on the court. The Chief Justice of India, the Supreme Court rather, has over 4 crore or rather sorry, in the entire country we have over 4 crore cases pending. In the Supreme Court itself, we have over 80,000 cases that are pending right now. And on top of that, if you give them the burden of RTI also, it will just increase the administrative burden because they already have so many pending cases. That is why it is not really a sound advice. These are challenges to including judiciary under the RTI. Now, the last topic of first class or first lecture that was supposed to be yesterday is the OSA. OSA is Official Secrets Act. OSA Act is now 101 years old. It was introduced by the British with a simple plain purpose. The British had the British had introduced it to keep a check on the powers of the press, newspapers specifically. The British did not want the newspapers to publish anything against the government. The British then introduced this law by saying that if the press publishes something which the government says is a secret, or if you publish any government secret, you will be punished under this. Same version of the law, like the Official Secret Act, similar version of the law exists in many parts of the world. Many different countries have their own version of the Official Secret Act, just like India has its version of the Official Secret Act. The problem is that it is being misused by the government. It is usually misused against a journalist. Because whenever a journalist publishes any breaking news that is against the government, whenever they try to expose a scam in the government, whenever they try to expose someone taking a bribe in the government threatens them that this is an official secret. How come you got to know about this? We'll take action against you. The problem again is that Official Secret Act here is in contradiction to the RTI. When people file the RTI, they want to know information from the government. And in order to hide that information, the government just says this is an official secret and we can't give you this information. That is why the Official Secret Act is a big hindrance. The Act talks about spying or espionage as the first offense and disclosure of secret information of the government as the second offense. The problem here is there is no definition of what is secret information. The government tomorrow can declare any information as a secret information. There is no proper rules or procedures to be followed to decide what is secret information, what is not secret information. That is the big issue. The government follows the Manual of Departmental Security, Instruction 1994, to classify documents as secret, but governments can randomly decide what documents are secret, what documents are not secret. Any person who publishes any of the official secret of the government will be punished. Not just this, if you have the official secret of the government and you communicate it to someone else, that person will also be punished. Person receiving the information will also be punished under the Official Secrets Act. There have been multiple suggestions that this act should go away, because this act is again something that has the capacity of being misused by the government, and it has been misused multiple times ever since the British introduced it. But the problem is, as a political party, you are very different when you're in the opposition as compared to when you're in the government. The same political party, when they're in the opposition, will say Officer Secret Act should go away. The same party in the opposition will say, oh, the gas prices are so high. The same party in the opposition will say, oh, the dollar is becoming stronger, money or rupee is weakening. But the moment that political party comes into power, when they form the government, everything changes. Then they also want to misuse the OSA. They also want to keep the information hidden. Then they will say, no, the prices of gas are not increasing. That is a problem. The political parties have demanded removing the OSA, but only when they are in the opposition. When the same party comes to power, they do not demand its removal. That is a big problem. And that is why OSA still remains, despite being suggested that it should be removed by multiple commissions. The big problem with the OSA is its conflict with the Right to Information Act. As per the RTI Act Section 8 and Section 9, government can refuse information. That is, government can classify a document as a secret document under OSA, and thus that document does not have to be shared with the RTI. That is a big problem. And this is why we are discussing this, that this should be removed going forward. Many suggestions have been given, many recommendations have been given about OSA from time to time. Like in 1971, the Law Commission had suggested that OSA should not be used or misused rather to punish people. That was a time when the government used to punish journalists, whoever would publish any information that the government did not like. The OSA has been used as that kind of a harassment tool. So 1971 Law Commission said that this should not be the case, because OSA was not done or was not introduced because of this. Second, the second ARC also suggested that Official Secret Acts should be replaced. Second ARC said, second ARC suggested repealing of the OSA will help in RTI becoming much more effective. The interesting part is in 2015, just a few years back, in 2015, the government did form a committee to look into Officer Secret Act and see if they want to remove it or not. In 2017, the committee suggested that OSA should be made more transparent. They did not say that OSA should be removed. The committee of the government in 2017 suggested that OSA should be made more transparent, but no changes have been made so far. We shall have the old Official Secret Act without any changes being made by the government, because again, whenever you are in power, you behave in a very, very different manner as compared to when you are not in power. This brings us to the end of module number 1 about RTI and transparency. I have a few questions for you in a quiz format. As I told yesterday also, mainly governance is a main subject where you get questions in the mains examinations. But there are some topics here and there where you might get some question in the prelims exam as well. So based on that, let's see if you can answer certain questions. The first question is right here in front of you. Look at this very carefully, read it. Let me know once you've read it, I'll start your time. That, read it? Okay, your time has started. Time up. Only 27% people could get this right. This is actually D. None of the statements is correct. Let's see. First, removal of information commissioner is the same as Supreme Court judges. No. I told you yesterday also. If you see, there are two methods of removal that are usually used in most of the cases. Remember, I told you Supreme Court judges removal and the UPSC members removal. UPSC members removal is the same as CIC, CVC, for Lokpal, for National Human Rights Commission. They are removed in the same manner. Supreme Court judges, you remove the same manner as High Court judges, as the CAG, as the Chief Election Commissioner, so on and so forth. So the removal process for Information Commissioner is not the same as Supreme Court judges. We discussed it yesterday. The president will ask the Supreme Court to conduct an inquiry. Supreme Court will conduct the inquiry on the basis of which they will suggest the President of India, and then the removal decision will be taken. So first is wrong. Second is again wrong. What is the selection committee all about? Prime Minister, leader of the operation of the Lok Sabha, and the third member is a cabinet minister of the Prime Minister's choice. So third member may or may not be a home minister. There is no rule that the third member has to be a home minister. Third member has to be any cabinet minister of the choice of the prime minister. So second again is wrong. Third, information commissioner shall not be an MP, MLA, but may be connected to a political party. No, they can't even be connected to a political party. They can't be connected to a political party as well. We studied this yesterday. They should not have any political connection. They should not be any MP or MLA, etc. And that is why the answer here is D. Okay. Question number 2. Read this carefully once again. Let me know when you read it. Okay, time has started. And your time is up. 18% people this time could answer the question. This is again D. Again, all of these are wrong. First, there is no time limit for turnaround of first appeal. Wrong. We discussed there is a time limit of 45 days. Remember, for second appeal, there is no turnaround time. Turnaround time means in how much time the reply has to be given. For second appeal, when the appeal is with the Chief Information Commission, then there's no maximum time in which the turnaround has to be given, in which a response has to be given. For first appeal, there is still a maximum time period. Second, Supreme Court may direct the CIC to decide on a certain appeal. No, they have refused to do that. There have been instances in the past where some people have approached the Supreme Court about asking the CIC to take up a matter, but Supreme Court has denied that. They have said that no, RTI is to be handled by the Information Commission and we will not interfere. Now, tomorrow it might change. Tomorrow we might see that the Supreme Court starts to interfere, but at least for now, Supreme Court has said that we will not interfere in the working of the RTI. Third, time period given for RTI can be extended to 45 days when request is given to API. No, 35 days. Remember, we discussed this yesterday. In normal cases, your reply will come in 30 days. If your appeal is going ahead to the wrong department, then APIO will transfer it. It will take 5 more days. Then it becomes 35 days. So when the appeal has gone to APIO to the wrong department, then it takes 35 days for the appeal to be responded to. In other cases, it takes 30 days for the appeal to be responded to. That is a difference. Do remember that. Okay. So it's not 45, it is 35 days where the request is given to the APIO. So all these three would be wrong again. The answer here again is D. I know it is slightly confusing for a lot of you. Maybe you did not revise what we studied yesterday, but again, this should not be that difficult to answer. Next question. Read it carefully. Your time starts now. %43 people got this one right. This is C. First, second, and third, not the fourth one. We discussed this yesterday also. The law says NGOs that are substantially financed, NGOs which are substantially financed by the government are covered, but there is no definition of substantially financed. Substantially financed can be 25%, it can be 2%, it can be 1%, can be 50%. There's no clarity on what do you mean by substantially financed. The law just says NGOs that are substantially financed will be covered, but what is substantially financed? What is that number? What is that composition? No one really knows. Okay. Last question is this. Read it carefully. And your time starts now. %43 people got this side. This is C. Three of these are compulsory, mandatory to be written, not the education. Not the education, the other three are compulsory. Let me show you. Let me just take you back to that form once again that we saw yesterday. Just give me a moment. See this. This was the form. Star marked are mandatory. So look at this. Which are the ones that are marked star first? The ministry or the department. Name is compulsory. Address is also compulsory. All these are compulsory. Education status is not compulsory. So they do ask education status, but it is not star marked, so it is not mandatory. The question was what is mandatory, what is not. Education status they are, but these informations, these ones are not mandatory. You don't have to compulsorily fill that up. These are the ones that are mandatory, that are star marked. These are the 4 questions that we had, and now we end our first module that we had started yesterday. Okay. Before I begin with the second module, I'll give you a couple of minutes to ask questions. Please ask relevant questions. Whatever we had discussed in the first module, if you have some doubts, I'll be happy to answer that. You can ask now, and then we'll begin the module number two. Ayush is saying, can I read the Baiju's governance book with the PPT? Ayush, you can, but is it important? Not that much. If you want to read the book, I can't stop you, but I won't say it's very important. Thereby saying OSA of British time was accepted as it is by independent India, was it modified? No, not really modified. See, these laws are modified from time to time, but it was not modified just because we have accepted it at the time of independence. At the time of independence, whatever laws the British had introduced were inherited by India and independent India as it is. Any other question from module number one that we just completed? Rashida is saying, can I make my own notes or PPT is enough? Rashida, it depends really upon you. If you want to make your own notes, you can, but the information, the PPT is good enough along with the current affairs. And rather saying from where to study relevant case examples of quoting in the exam. And rather these days, the current affair magazines that you get in the market, many coachings publish current affair magazines. They are usually very good these days. Whenever you're reading any relevant topic, they will tell you a relevant Supreme Court case about it. So rather than you Googling a Supreme Court case, rather than you Googling the entire list, if you are regular with any current affair magazine, a good quality current affair magazine, they will tell you important relevant Supreme Court cases which you can quote. Then Smriti Singh suggestion second ARC in judiciary. Smriti, the suggestion that second ARC gave were about the RTI, not about judiciary. They were saying the fees that we give to file RTI, where that money goes for collection. They were all the money that you pay to the government goes to Consolidated Fund of India. Then I have a question from Jagdish. If opposition comes and forms the government, still there will be another opposition. Then why can't we say RTI is always favorable for opposition? Jagdish, I'm not sure what you're trying to ask. Maybe if you can frame the question better, I'm not able to understand. Lakshmi, the oath or transparency point is second ARC suggested that rather than having the ministers take the oath of secrecy, ask them to take the oath of transparency. Because when the ministers take the oath of secrecy, they use this as an excuse to not share information in the RTI. Yes, Kiran, it's drawn from Consolidated Fund of the State. Devyani is saying in exam only based on this topic, current affair based questions are asked. If it is in the news, current affairs based questions will be asked. Ayush, you can practice answer writing from wherever you can, wherever you will want to begin. There's no time limit on that. Pari is saying, what is the time period to reply to second appeal of RTI? So, Pari, second appeal, when you file to the Information Commission, they don't have any time limit within which they will reply. Your appeal can remain pending at the Information Commission for many months, even years. There is no maximum turnaround time for that. That is the biggest problem with this law. Now, these are the questions that you had for me. Now, listen to what I am trying to tell you. And I tell this in every single batch. See, when I see questions, for example, being asked here. Okay, one more question that I have in Bhuvnesh is asking, leader of the opposition, is he under the RTI? Bhuvnesh, try and imagine this. If you are filing an RTI from leader of the opposition, number one, what will you ask? Because leader of the opposition is not handling any department. Secondly, the leader of the opposition is not under any ministry. So when you have to decide which ministry, which department you're asking the question to, what will you choose? So no. Uh, then I'll take. See, Guys, anyone who tells me repeat point number two, point number three, please don't do that. I don't know what was point two or point three. If you are paying attention, tell me this is the point, please repeat this. I can repeat that. But I can't go back to a slide and remember this was point number two, point number three. So please don't ask me to repeat point two, point three. I don't know what point you're talking about. Tell me which point was it. You would have listened something. You would have listened some word that I said. Tell me which point do you want me to read. Don't give me a point number because that is not of any use for me. Rajesh saying, can personal life of officers working under government under RTI? No, not under RTI. We discussed this yesterday also. Chandan is saying, why can't RTI make constitutional? Because it is mentioned implicitly in Article 19. Chandan, see, again, to write it in the constitution or not, it is a prerogative of the parliament. If the parliament wants, they can write it. If the parliament does not want, they will not write it. Pari, 45-day time limit is in the first appeal, not in the second appeal. Now, guys, listen to me very, very carefully. I don't know. Uh, I don't know. Is it because you type in a hurry? But when I see people asking doubts in the chat, I get really, really, really worried. And why I get worried is that in 90% of the cases, the sentence that you are writing is grammatically incorrect. And I really get worried about all of you that if you can't write one single sentence properly, how would you be able to write the entire answer? I'm not sure if you write incorrectly because you're in a hurry. I don't know if that is the case, but just because you're in a hurry, you should not be writing grammatically incorrect statements. So when you are writing, even asking a question to anyone in the chat, try and write in proper sentence so that you can at least practice. Because if you can't even write one single statement in proper grammatical syntax, how will you be able to write an entire 250 200 word answer in the mains exam? I'm not sure. So I'm not taking anyone's name, but 90% of the cases are like this only. 90% of the comments that I get are not grammatically correct. Please, please, please pay attention to that. You can't say that, oh, I will improve in the examination, because these are all small little habits. You have to ensure that whenever you're writing any sentence, it has to be at least one single sentence you can write grammatically correct, right? But I'm very sorry to say that most of the sentences that I see are grammatically all over the place. There is no structure to that sentence. Please make sure that you work on this, because otherwise it will be very, very costly for all of you. Even if you clear the prelims examination, in the mains examination you won't be able to get through with this kind of writing. One last question, then we'll go ahead. uh, Stephen is saying, can you explain who are the members involved in appointing ICS? Stephen, I'm not sure if you attended the class yesterday. We discussed this yesterday. There's a three-member committee: Prime Minister, Leader of the Operation of the Lok Sabha, and the Minister of the Prime Minister's choice. These three together will give a suggestion to the President of India, and then the person will be appointed. Ganesh, you can start answering practice whenever you want. Start from right now. Why wait for anything else? All right, then. We go on to chapter number two, or module number two now. The first module that we had was about RTI, how the government should be open, how we need to have more transparency from the side of the government, how we can ask for information from the government, so on and so forth. Continuing on the theme of transparency, we will now go ahead and start with Citizens Charter. So we'll continue on the theme of transparency only. We'll study about something called the Citizens Charter, which again is an attempt to bring more transparency in how governance works. Citizens Charter is an extremely easy topic to understand, and at the same time, it is a very, very commonly asked topic in the mains exam. Almost every second, third year, you will see one question from Citizens Charter in the GS2 paper. It's a very easy to understand topic, commonly asked questions. You will see in the governance chapter every single year, or every 2 or 3 years, you will see a question from Citizens Charter. Now, what exactly is this? Let's try and understand this. Let's imagine you go to a post office. Some of you might have been to a post office, many of you might not have been to a post office. When you go to a post office, you will see, for example, on one of the walls of the post office, a big information board will be on that wall. That information board basically tells you what are the services provided by the post office. So, for example, they will write here speed post, normal post, parcel, let's say money order, opening up a bank account, so on and so forth. So they will tell you what are the different types of services they offer, and then they will tell you in how many days can you expect the service to be given. For example, let's say 3 days, 15 days, 10 days, 10 days, 5 days, something like this. And in the end, they will also tell you if this service has not been given to you in the given time period, then where can you go and complain? Where can you go and complain? What is the authority? There may be an email ID given. There may be a phone number given where you can go and file a complaint. This, in simple terms, is called the Citizens Charter. In simple, plain terms, this is a Citizens Charter. Basically, a government department telling the common people what are the services that we offer, promising them that if you take our services, within how much time period will you be delivered those services, and then telling them that if we are not able to give you these services, where can you go and complain. All this together is called as a Citizens Charter. Now, this is not something that began in India. It began in the UK in 1990s. It was adopted in India as well later on. Why is it that the government adopted this? The idea is simple. Right now, if you have to choose between a government organization offering a certain service and a private organization offering the same service, most people will opt for the private organization because they believe the private organization will give them better quality of services. Let's take a simple example. The simple question that I have is, let's assume you have to post a letter. You have all the options available. Money is not a concern. Where will you go to post letter? To the post office or to private company like DTDC, Blue Dart, FedEx, etc.? Where will you opt for? What do you think? If you just have to post a letter, you have all the options available, money is not really a concern, where will you go? Would you go to the post office or would you rather go to a private organization? In most cases, you will opt for the private organization. In most cases, you will opt for DTDC or Blue Dart or all these options available to you. And the reason is simple, that the services provided by them are much better. Many of them now even have home pickup. You can just book it on their app. They will come to your home. They will pick it up. You can track them properly. You can receive them using the OTP. They're much more secure also. Unless you don't have options available, unless you are going to a place where you don't have any other option available, you will have to, or you will offer private organization. I'll give you one more example. Till a few years back, in Ladakh, the only telecom operator, the only phone number that used to work was BSNL. In Ladakh, only BSNL number used to work. Even today, if you go to Andaman Nicobar, BSNL and Airtel are the only two that will work. Now again, imagine this. You are living in a city where you have all the options available. Which phone number will you buy? BSNL, Airtel, Jio, Idea, Vodafone? Just think yourself. You have all the options available. Which one will you buy? Would you go ahead and buy the BSNL one, or would you go and buy a private one? You would obviously go and buy a private one. It will be Jio or Airtel, as I can see in the chat. Mostly you will buy Jio or Airtel, but very rarely would you opt for BSNL. You would only opt for BSNL when you don't have any other option available. So, for example, my close friend is in the army. When he was posted in Ladakh a few years back, he used to have his BSNL phone number. Why? Because there was no other option available. Only when you don't have any other option available, only then you have a situation where you offer government services. That is a problem, because the perception in the minds of the people is the quality of services provided by the government organization is lower than the private organizations, and that is what the citizens charter wants to change. The idea of the citizens charter is to build more confidence in the people about government services, to build more confidence in public about government services. Second, to increase competition, because when only private sector organizations are working, the government organizations are not even in competition, it will be against the market forces. Third, what we don't realize is when most people don't offer government services, that also hits the revenue of the government negatively. When most people are not going to the post office, when most people are not opting for BSNL, when most people are not going ahead and taking government services, that means the earning capacity or the revenue of the government also declines. The revenue also declines. So all of this is a concern for the government, and the government does thought that why not start something like a citizens charter. Now, it's a good beginning because it kind of tells the people, if you take our services, we will give it to you in this time period, and this is what you can expect, so on and so forth. However, there's a problem also. The big problem is there is no legal backing. When I say no legal backing, what do I mean? If in this case you, let's say, booked a speed post from the post office says within 3 days we will deliver it no matter where you post it for. But if the post office did not do their job, if they did not post it or deliver it within 3 days, what can you do? Can you go to the court? No, you cannot. Why? Because there is no legal backing. No legal backing means there is no law passed on citizens charter. Because there is no law passed on citizens charter, the courts cannot interfere. So even if the services that are promised have not been provided to you, there is nothing that you can do about it. That is a big problem with the citizens charter today. Now, I will show you two citizens charters, two real citizens charters in this class, to get an idea about how are they made. You don't have to remember citizens charter because there are hundreds of citizens charters in India. Every government department, every government college has their own citizens charter. So there is no point of remembering them. The reason I'm showing this to you is so that you can understand what we are talking about. How do they look exactly? The question in the citizens charter will not be about a specific citizens charter. The question that UPSC will ask will be about the problems in the citizens charter, suggestions of the citizens charter, how can we improve it, how can we make it better. The question will never be about right citizens charters of that organization or that department. No, they will not ask this. So let me give you an example. The first example is there's a government college that has its citizens charter. Let's see this. Services they offer: number one, admission, prospectus, library card, ID card, college magazine, so on and so forth. Then they've given the time period, like prospectus will be given within 5 days, ID card, library card within 10 days of the admission, college magazine within 10 days, ratification of internal assessment within 2 days. Then they've also given officials who are responsible for these services. So if you want a library card, who is responsible for providing that service? The librarian. If you want the character certificate, who is responsible? The dealing clerk, university clerk, so on and so forth. So this is how a citizen charter looks like. Some others are big, some are small, but again, these are usually how. citizens charters look like. So in India, the beginning of citizens charter was in 1997 as an experiment mainly. It was seen as a government attempt to bring more confidence into the government offices, attract more people to take government service. It started in 1997. In 1997, there was a conference of chief ministers of various states and union territories who started or who thought that it would be a good idea to come up with this kind of a citizen charter in India. After that, it was made a permanent procedure. Now, when it started in some banks. The first experiment was, let's put citizen charters in certain banks. Even today, when you go to banks, you will see on one of the walls of the banks kind of a display board given where they will tell you what are the services that they offer, in how many days can you expect the services, so on and so forth. Who prepares the citizen charters in India? That's an important information. The responsibility of preparing the citizen charters in India is with the Department of Administrative Reforms and Public Grievances. In short, it is called DARPG. Again, DARPG is Department of Administrative Reforms and Public Grievances. This is the department that prepares citizens' charters for all the other departments. They coordinate with them, they help them with preparing and formulating their citizens' charter. As I said, there is still no legal backing. When I say no legal backing, means no law has been passed on it. It is not written in any law whatsoever, because of which, even if the commitments are not fulfilled, you cannot really go to the court against it. Now there is a specific website for citizens charter. If you just Google, you will get a website of the citizens charter. It looks something like this. What will you find on this website? You will find hundreds of citizen charters of every government department. So if you want to read, let's say, citizen charter of a specific department, you can come here, search for that here, and you will be able to read that. You don't have to remember, but if you want, the government of India has set up a specific website also for citizens charter now. This is from that website only. It talks about the history of citizens charter, how it started as an idea in 1991 in UK, and then some other countries around the world adopted it, including India. The idea is citizens charter should ensure that quality of services are provided to the citizens. It should give multiple choice to the people, to the consumers wherever possible. Like in post office, you have a choice of normal post, speed post, so on and so forth. Quality of standard should not be compromised. It should be value for money. Someone should be accountable if they are not fulfilling their obligation. The officer should be held accountable, and we should have proper transparency. Oderani, I told you, na, the purpose of citizen charter is to attract people to have faith in the government services. I told you earlier, number one, it will create more competition in the market. Number two, when people don't take government services, it hits the revenue of the government as well. So, citizen charter is kind of government's attempt to revive the government departments, to revive the government offering so that more people can opt for them. It's advantage for citizens as well, because when you have more options available in the market, you have a better value for your money, as simple as that. Priyanshu, see, government cannot force a private organization to have a citizen charter. If you have a private organization, you can have your own citizen charter. No one can stop you. But the government cannot force a private organization to have a citizen charter. Now, in Indian citizen charter, these are the things that we usually see. It might change from charter to charter. It's not that all the citizen charter will have this. Usually, citizen charters have the mission and the vision statement of that organization. What are the services offered by them? Who are the people who can claim the services? Apart from that, grievance redressal means where can you go and complain? if the services have not been given to you. What are the expectations from the clients means it can be in the form of fees, what are you expected to pay, and any other additional detail like compensation, etc., may also be given. Compensation like, if we are not able to provide you services in this time period, we will compensate in this and this manner. Usually, these are the things that we see in the citizens charter. Now, it is not necessary that all the citizens charters will have all these aspects. Some citizen charter may have some other aspects as well from time to time. I'll show you one more citizen charter to give a better understanding of this. This citizen charter is of the Department of Higher Education. It's in the PDF form. Let's see what this says. First, it talks about the vision of the Department of Higher Education. The vision is to realize India's resource potential in the education sector. Again, I'm telling you, you do not have to remember individual citizen charters. I'm giving you examples so that you can at least get an idea of what are citizen charters, but you don't have to remember these individual citizen charters. First is a vision, then it has what is its mission, what it is trying to achieve, to initiate policies, programs, to improve the quality of higher education, so on and so forth. Then it talks about the services, it talks about who are the clients, who are the people who can take the services. So who are the people who can take services from the Department of Higher Education? Citizens of India, students, faculties, people's representatives, ministries, state governments, etc. All these are people who are clients in some way or the other, who are served by the Department of Higher Education. These are services that they offer. Services include release of funds under government schemes, grant of scholarships, filling up of vacant positions, payment to the vendors, etc. And they have also given a time limit within which you can expect the services to be given to you. They also have a grievance addressal, means in case a service is given to you, or in case a promises given to you rather have not been fulfilled. If the promise was that a service will be fulfilled in 15 days, it was not done, then what can you do? You can contact here. You can contact here exactly what the problem is. You can contact here, file a complaint. They've also given a complaint filing process for online complaints. This is how the citizen charter looks like. It also talks about the expectations. Expectations, for example, include if you are asking for any query, write it properly, write it clearly. All the stakeholders should provide relevant information in time. If you're asking for release of funds in scholarships, etc., all the relevant documents should be published. All these are expectations from the clients and from the stakeholders that the department has set. It also says that the citizen charter was last reviewed, means last it was changed in 2020 April. After every few years, departments keep on changing their citizen charters. If they require any changes, it is changed from time to time. That is how the citizen charter basically looks like. Give me 1 minute of time. Let me refill my water bottle. I'll be back. Don't go anywhere. We'll start from A. Just 1 more minute. All right then. So we were discussing about how citizen starters are. We took a few examples. Now, the most common questions that the UPSC asks about citizen starter is the issues in the citizen starter in India. Now, there are a lot of issues. First one, as I told you, the biggest one is that there is no legal backing. Tell me something honestly. Before you came to the class today, or rather, before you started UPSC preparation, did any one of you ever even hear about what is a citizen starter? Tell me very honestly. Before you started UPSC preparation, did you even know that there's something like a citizen starter that exists? Right? No one, including me. I'm not saying that I knew. I also did not know what citizen starter is. So hardly anyone knew what a citizen starter is. Now, this is again a big problem, that a lot of things that are important in our society, a lot of things that we are supposed to know as citizens, no one has ever told us. It is not really a part of our education system. In our schools, we are not taught this. Now, you might say that how can we get to know, the schools did not teach this? But the question that I have is, all of you, or most of you rather, would know what is a bitcoin or how to buy a bitcoin. Most of you today know how to make a team on dream 11. Most of you today know how to buy mutual fund. The school did not teach you all these things, but you know this. You know today, if you want to buy a bitcoin, where do you have to go? Which app do I have to download? You know today that if you have to play rummy circle, if you have to play these games, you know what to download. So the education system did not teach you that also, but still you are aware. But the government never made an attempt to make people aware about citizen charter. Because see, understand this from the government's point of view. The more people who are aware about citizen charter, the more is a burden on the government itself. Don't you think so? For the government, the best part would be that people don't even know what citizen charter and the job is done. That is a big issue. There is no legal backing and there is no awareness also. The government has not made any attempt to make the people aware about what is a citizen charter so that they can demand more things. There's a problem of bureaucratic mindset. Let's understand something. Let's forget about IAS or UPSC jobs for a moment right now. Okay. Apart from IAS or UPSC jobs, let's think about the other government jobs. In India, lakhs and lakhs of people prepare for the government jobs. Now, the reason why people prepare for government jobs, people have different reason for everything. But one of the bigger reasons why people or so many people aspire for government jobs is, one of the biggest reasons is that job stability, right? Or job security. So the idea is, or the assumption rather, is that once you get a government job, you will not be removed, right? That's an assumption. I'm not saying it's true or false, but that's an assumption. Unless you commit a huge blunder, you will not be removed from the government job. What it also means is, if you are not the topmost performer in your department, if you are not the one who is always at the top, even then you will not be removed, right? That is the idea of job security. Because when you say I have job security, what do you mean? You mean to say that even if I am not doing my job 100%, even if I am not up to the mark, even if my performance is not the best in the department, there is no pressure on me, right? That is what you mean. Now tell me this. A person prepared for a government job for many years, made it to a government job because of job security, thinking that I would not have to work very hard. And then all of a sudden, the government tells him, no, 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 you have to work hard because now you have a citizen starter. Now, if we promise something in 3 days, you have to give it in 3 days, no matter what. Tell me, would the government servant like it? A government servant, someone who became a government servant after so many attempts, after giving so much hard work, money, etc., to come to a job where you do not have to work a lot. All of a sudden, on top of you, you are now being told you have to work hard because a citizen starter. You will not like it. That is a problem of bureaucratic mindset. That is what you mean by bureaucratic mindset. That is mindset that does not really allow you or push you towards giving 100%, because you know at the back of your mind that even if I don't fulfill my target, you know at the back of your mind that even if I don't fulfill this timeline, no problem, nothing will happen. That is an issue of the bureaucratic mindset. Next, there are limited consultations done by the government. Means when a government department is making a citizen's charter, they don't consult the people. They just make a citizen charter by themselves rather than asking the people, what would you like us to focus on? What would you like us to have the maximum time limit to give you a service? Other problem, no penal provision, means no penalty. No penalty involved for those who are not doing their job properly. If the post office has promised you that within 3 days they will deliver your speed post and they don't do it within 3 days, someone has to be held accountable. Someone should be held responsible. Someone should have to pay a penalty for that. But it doesn't happen under Citizens Charter. There is no penalty as such. And then, as I said, there's hardly any awareness about it. People just don't know. And how would the people know about it? We were never taught about this in school, college. Government never told us. Prime Minister in the speech never told us, Mitro, you have a citizen charter. No. So how will we at least get to know about citizen charter? There is no ad on the television. There is no ad on the newspaper. The news channels don't tell something about this. So how will we get to know about this? That is a big problem. And this is why we have an issue of the citizens charter, where awareness is almost zero. Then, lack of incentive for those who are working well. Have you heard of something called carrot and stick policy? Have you heard of this phrase? Most of you would have heard of this. If you don't know, carrot and stick policy simply means in order for you, if you want to encourage people to do some job, if you want to push people towards doing some job, you have to give them reward. That is, carrot means reward if they do this, and you have to give them punishment as well if they don't. That is called a carrot and stick policy. You give them reward for achieving and you punish them for not achieving. In citizens charter, we neither have a reward nor do we have a punishment. In citizens charter, both of these have been taken away. We just saw there is no punishment if you are not fulfilling your target. On the other hand, there is no incentive also if you are doing well. One of the big problems that we have in the government jobs, and you will see this when you become civil servants also, one of the big problems is promotions are usually fixed. So if your promotion is, let's say, due after 5 years, you will be promoted after 5 years only, no matter how amazing a job you did in these 5 years. Government will not say, oh, this is such an amazing person, let's promote him in 3 years only. That will not happen. Trust me, if you have that expectation that I will do such an amazing job, government will make me the principal secretary in 5 years. Trust me, that is not going to happen, because again, the incentives are very fixed. You are not being incentivized to do the extra job, and that is a big problem. When there's no incentive of going beyond your duty, of stretching yourself, why would anyone do that? Apart from that, in many departments, citizen charters have been delayed. Many departments have not even taken it seriously because, again, when you have no punishment, when you have no legal compulsion, why would you take it seriously? Most citizen charters don't have any special provisions for senior citizens, people suffering from disability, etc. They should be given preference, they should be given service on priority. but their mention is not found in most of the citizens charter. Then many of them are not even reviewed. Once it is formed, they forget about it for many, many years, they remain the same. There is not much power given at the department level to actually implement the citizens charter. Let me give you an example of this. Let's take an example. See, and we'll take the example of the post office only. So you go to a post office, you book a speed post, and the speed post rule is within 3 days they will deliver it to anywhere in India. Now, whether the post office is able to deliver in 3 days or not depends upon at the end the person who is delivering it to your home, right? Let's say from Delhi, you book a letter for Port Blair, Andaman Nicobar. The letter has reached Andaman Nicobar. On the third day, it is the postmaster that has to go out and deliver the letter. If he does not do the job properly, the letter will not reach you in 3 days. So the responsibility to actually deliver this will be with the last person possible. The problem here is if the postmaster that is at the lower level of this chain is not doing his job properly, there is no action that can be taken against him. He cannot be told by his superiors that you will be suspended if you don't do your job properly. That postmaster also knows no one can dismiss me. If someone has to dismiss me, orders have to come from higher up. When you know that your job is so safe that it is not even dependent on your performance, that becomes a problem. When you know that you have no incentive, when you know that you cannot be punished, that is a problem here. Many technical jargons or very technical information, technical words rather, are used in sentence starter. Sentence starters may not be easy to understand for a common person. Common person, anyways, has no idea what is a sentence starter, and then to write in a uncommon or difficult language makes the matters even worse. As you can see, there are some news about citizen starters that keep on coming on. For example, Hyderabad Corporation, that is a municipal corporation, has introduced citizens charter now. So if you have a complaint, for example, let's say there's a pothole, street light is not working, you can file a complaint to Hyderabad Municipal Corporation, and they have a time limit within which they will fulfill that particular complaint. They will redress that complaint. That's what they've done in the citizens charter. So we do have citizens charters around us, such that we don't come to know about it. We don't hear it in the news, but these do exist all around us. Now in India, our citizens charter, as I said, we have a lot of problems. In 2003, about 20 years back, the Department of Administrative Reforms and Public Grievances, they had reviewed citizens charters. See, understand this. In 1997, citizens charter were introduced in India first. So within about 5 years, in 2002, 3, in just 5 years, the DARPG wanted to evaluate whether citizen charters are working or not. And this was their report, that charters are not formed through a consultative process, no discussions are happening. Service providers themselves don't know about the charter, let alone the common people. People sitting in the post office, working in the post office, they themselves don't know what is a citizen charter. Then charters have not been given any publicity. People don't know about this, and no funds have been given to spread awareness as well. That is a big problem with the government schemes. When the government or a government department knows that a certain scheme will only increase their workload, they try and not have any publicity about it. You will not see any publicity or ad about RTI also. You will never see government department or the government asking the people to file an RTI. Because if you file an RTI, you are increasing their workload only. So RTI, citizen charters, these are things that are just not advertised by the government or the government departments in any way. The second ARC, has given some recommendation about citizen charters as well in the past. For example, they have said every department, every unit should have their own citizens charter. What do you mean by this? Let's try and understand. For example, all post offices in India have the same citizens charter, which is not fair. How? Let's say there's a post office in Delhi. Okay. Now, this Delhi post office says that we will deliver speed post in 3 days anywhere in India. Wherever you book within 3 days, we will deliver. On the other hand, there may be a post office in Lakshadweep. Their citizen charter also says the same thing, but for a post office in Lakshadweep, it will not be possible for them to deliver a speed post to entire country within 3 days. How can they do that? They have to first have as many speed posts as possible so that it is practical for them to send it by plane because there's an island. So you can't have one single citizen charter for all the post offices across the country because they have different resources, they have different constraints. Some of them have the capacity, some of them don't have the capacity. So you can't have the same citizen charter for each and every organization, which is the case right now. Second ARC says that we should change this. We should have a separate citizens charter for independent units. Then they suggest consultation as well, to consult with the stakeholders. For example, before making a citizens charter for a post office, we should consult those people who use the services of the post office very, very commonly. So if there are people who come to post office very often, who use these services very regularly, they should be the one who should be consulted before the citizen charter is implemented. Commit only what you can deliver. Only if it is possible, those are the only things that should be written on the citizen charter. Like, when you're in a new relationship, you want to impress your partner, you will commit anything. I will buy you this, I'll buy a Lamborghini for you, I'll buy this for you, will do this for you. But you also know that is not a reality, because you are over compensating, because you want the other person to think that you are capable of doing all this. That is something that should be avoided here as well. So commit only what you can deliver. Don't make false promises, something that is out of your reach. Second ARC also says internal structure should be reformed if you want to fulfill charter commitments. Means just writing it on a piece of paper that I will deliver this service to you in 5 days or 3 days, and not making changes in your process will not really help you out. If you want to achieve citizen charter obligations, you have to make sure that your internal processes, structures are made in such a way that you can achieve those targets. Have an appropriate redressal mechanism means you should have a proper complaint procedure where a person can file a complaint if the commitment is not fulfilled. There should be periodic evaluation, and officers should be held accountable for results. It may be positive or negative. Whatever be the case, the officers responsible should be held accountable for the performance of the department and the citizens charter. These are the recommendations given by the second ARC. Apart from that, also there are some suggestions how to improve the citizens charter. Like, when the department is forming its first citizens charter, they should be given help by the experts. Hand holding exercise means basically they should be guided, they should be mentored by other organizations, by other experts, when the charter or when the first ever charter is being made by any department. We should raise much more awareness, and we should try and change the attitude of the public services. See, all these suggestions are very easy to write. You will also feel this. Writing it in the mains examination is easy because you are not doing this on the ground. It's only when you try and practice this on the ground will you see how difficult it is to make all these changes. It's easy to say change your attitude, generate awareness, do this, do that, make internal changes, make changes in the process, etc. It's easy to say all of this, but to actually implement this, it's extremely, extremely difficult. And that's why the governments have found it very difficult to make any changes. Incentivize those who are working properly. If there is a specific department that is continuously achieving its goal, that is continuously fulfilling the obligation the citizen charter, they should be incentivized in some way or the other, and their method should be replicated in other departments as well. So basically kind of setting up a model department. So any department that is doing a very good job, any officer doing a very good job, they should be showcased to other. For example, the government does it. You would have seen this. If let's say there's a place where some law and order issue has happened, some riots have happened, some other complications have happened, the government usually sends those police officers to those places which have a proven track record of bringing the situation under control. I'll give you an example. Have you heard of an officer called KPS Gill? Have you heard of him? KPS Gill, ever heard of him? Kanwar Pal Singh Gill basically is the name. No? Okay. So KPS Gill, one of the most famous IPS officers in the history of India. One of the most famous IPS officers in the entire Indian history. Very, very, very famous person. He died in 2017. So basically, KPS Gill, extremely, extremely famous. Why famous? Because he was known as a police officer that the government used to trust wherever the situation was very bad. The government used to send him to that place. For example, in the 1980s, remember when we had this Assam movement, when Assam Accord was signed? Before the Assam Accord was signed in 1980s, there was a lot of issues in Northeast. Many militants actually had captured government offices in Assam. The government sent KPS Gill. He was responsible for bringing situation under control in Assam. He faced militants face to face. He was extremely brave. The government then trusted him. And then in 1980s, in the end of 1980s, there was widespread terrorism in Punjab. Punjab saw its worst militancy in 1980s end. 1988, 1989 was a very bad time in Punjab. So he was asked to go to Punjab specifically. Then he worked in Punjab to bring situation under control. So he was one of those kind of officers who was sent from one place to other whenever there was any issue, whenever there were any problems. He was the one who was sent, and he was usually the one who used to bring situation under control. If you are interested in him, there's a very famous book written on him called the Paramount Cop. This is the name of his book, the Paramount Cop. If you want, if you have some time, you can read about him as well, the Paramount Cop. Anyways, so basically, the example that I wanted to give you is that government should replicate officers who are doing a good job to other departments as well. And this is again something which is very common. When the government identifies an officer or department doing a good job, the government then replicates that to other department. That is a suggestion here as well. Charter should have simplified language, should not have a lot of detail. The charter should only contain that text which is important for the common people. Don't confuse the people a lot by writing a lot of stuff. Only give information which is important, information that is necessary is good enough. You don't have to write a lot of other information here. And that is another suggestion of how to improve the citizens charter. Here's a previous year question on citizen charter of how to write it. Think about it. Come back at 8:05 a.m. and we'll resume from here. Thank you. Hi everyone. So we have a question in front of us. Now, this question that you see, this is the type of question that we usually see in citizen charters. Most of the questions will always be about the problems, solutions, suggestions, etc. Let's read it. The question is, those citizen charters have been formulated by many public service delivery organizations, there is no corresponding movement in the level of citizen satisfaction and the quality of services being provided analyzed. Now, see, there are different types of questions. One type of questions are where you are straightforward asked something. For example, let's say there is a question which says, what are the different elements of citizen charter? Question mark. So when you have a straightforward question where they are asking you something straightforward, you know what to write. It's easy to write. In these kind of questions where they have just given a statement, they have not asked you something. If you look at it carefully, they're just given a statement saying that citizen charter, despite their formulation, have not really improved the level of services. Full stop, analyze. Now, they're not asking you anything from here to here, right? They're asking you to just analyze it. So, what do you do in these cases? When you're not really asked about any specific fact, you just have to expand on the idea that is given here. For example, the idea that is given here is that citizen starters have not led to improvement in the level of services. So you have to write about here in the main body about the problems of citizen starter. Means why has it not led to improvement in the services on the level of the services? So what are the problems in the citizen starter? And then you can refer or you can write some suggestions as well. Way forward suggestion or suggestions can be the ones given by second ARC, that will also work. Other suggestions also can work. So depending upon that, that is how you will write the answer. We'll write about the problems. Why is it that the citizen starter still has not been able to achieve its objective? And second, we'll write about the solution part as well. So let's see. We'll first introduce it. We have discussed this yesterday as well. The best way to introduce is either give a definition or a fact. So here you can give a fact about citizen starter. When was it first introduced in India? You can talk about that. Introduced in India in 1997. It aims to enhance governance by stimulating service delivery standards for public sector organizations, something like that. So again, one or maximum two lines of intro is good enough. If you have a question of, let's say, 150 words limit, 150, then one line introduction would be good enough. If the question is longer, 200 word limit, 250 word limit, you can write a couple of lines in the introduction. Try and not expand or go beyond two lines. Two lines are good enough usually in the introduction part. In the main body, if you want, you can write these kind of, or you can make these kind of diagrams if you want to, just to talk more about citizen starter to make it even more impressive. How is it helpful? How does it help? How it is something that can be used to improve the citizen service delivery experience. Anyways, now we'll write about the problems in the main body, the problems that the citizen starter has because of which it has not been able to fulfill its potential. Now, what are problems? We have discussed about them. You can write whatever you remember at that point of time. For example, no penalty, poor implementation, lack of review and update. Again, you are free to write whatever pointers you point here. We have discussed a lot of problems. Ineffective grievance redressal, lack of awareness, non-inclusive process, etc. Now, when you write these points, at least explain each of them in at least one line. For example, don't just write lack of awareness full stop. Lack of awareness dash, write at least one line. The fact that common people don't know about this, or if you can give any real example. For example, here, study conducted by a think tank called Center for Good Governance in 2015 showed that only 40% citizens were aware about such charters. So if you have any of these facts that you can give as examples here, that would be a very good way to at least start here or to start writing something like this. So again, whatever points that you write, give at least one line of explanation, give at least one line of description to it. Then, as I said, we will give some suggestions after problems. Suggestion writing is very easy. If you know the problem, if you know what the problems are, just write opposite to the problems and that will become your suggestions. Look at this, for example. The first problem that we have is no penalty, no penal provisions. So suggestion that we have is that we should have penal provisions. Simple. If the problem is that charters have not been reviewed for a long time, suggestion can be to have a timely review. If the problem is there is lack of awareness, solution is to have more awareness. So basically, writing solutions is pretty easy if you know what the problems are. When you write about the problem, solution just have to be the opposite of it. Each and every point you just write the opposite of it and you would be good enough to carry out and to complete the solution part here as well. Then you can conclude here by writing about citizen starters, potential, and how they can be improved if we follow these suggestions, if we follow suggestions given by the second ARC. Something like this can be the answer. Now, citizen starter is an easy topic. I hope there's no confusion in that. The kind of questions that are asked in citizen starter are very easy. As I said, usually problems, solutions, that is the only thing that is asked in citizen starter. There is no individual citizen starter that is asked. So you don't have to remember individual charters of different departments. Just remember the basic idea of problem solution and that would be good enough. Fatima is saying way forward and conclusion are written separately. Fatima, see, there is no one method to write. UPSC will not tell you that write it separately, write it once. You can write it in one go also. No issues. It really depends on the word limit that you have. If you think within the given word limit, you don't have space for conclusion, you have written the way forward and concluded there and then itself. If you think you just have to write one more line in the concluding argument just to sum it up, you can do that as well. There is no one set pattern as such. Another question was asked in 2018. This is your homework. Try and see if you can write this. If you read this question carefully, you will see, although the wording of the question is different, but you have to write almost the same thing here also. Look at this question. Citizen Charter is an ideal instrument of organizational transparency and accountability, but it has its own limitations. Identify the limitations and suggest the measures for greater effectiveness of Citizens Charter. So again, question is formed in a different manner, but it is exactly the same thing that you have to write here that you just wrote in the last question. In the last question also, we wrote about the problems, that is the limitation and the solution part. The same has to be written here as well. The problem and the solution part, and it should be good enough. So again, every time that this question on Citizen Charter is asked, it's almost on the similar lines as well. Now, before we conclude this and jump on to part number 2 of lecture 2, there is one more thing I wanted to share with you. Related to Citizens Charter, there is something called the Sevottam framework. What is it exactly? The second ARC suggested that the government should work on Sevottam model. What is Sevottam? Those who do not know what exactly, those who don't know Hindi, it's a amalgamation of two words, Seva plus Uttam becomes Sevottam. The translation would be excellence in service delivery. Translation is excellence in service delivery. The second ARC had suggested that the government of India should focus on service delivery, should ensure that they have set standards for services to be provided. People's perception that the government services are inferior to private sector should not be carried on. How to do that? They suggested something called the Sevottam model. Sevottam model consists of three things. Please remember, Sevottam model would have three components. First, citizens charter, then grievance redressal, and then enhancing the capacity. So I'll tell you the three components are citizens charter. Second is public grievance redressal. So if people have a problem, they should be able to file complaints. And third is improving service delivery capacity. These three together, as per the second ARC, are the Sevottam model. To ensure excellence in service delivery, you have to focus on these three things. Do remember this as well. As you can see here, just last year, about a year ago, Pune hosted the national seminar on Sevottam. It was hosted by DARPG, same department that is responsible for making citizen starter. There were plans to have different rankings of state or grievance redressal to see which state performs best to resolve the complaints of its people. Okay, let's have a few questions from the prelims point of view. Let's see if you can answer them. I'll start with the first one. Read this carefully. The time starts now. And your time is up. 71%, most people got it right. This is C. TARPG works under this ministry. Ministry of Personnel, Public Grievance and Pension. Under this ministry, we have Department of Administrative Reforms and Public Grievances. This is the department that is responsible for making citizen charter. UPSC, by the way, also works under the same ministry. So same ministry is responsible for UPSC as well. Atish, DARPG, I've told you earlier. I'm not sure if maybe you were not in the class earlier. DARPG is Department of Administrative Reforms and Public Grievances. We discussed this earlier as well. Question number 2. The time has started. %59 people got this right. I thought it's pretty easy. We just discussed this. We just discussed this 2 minutes back. Sevottam model includes three things: citizens charter, grievance redressal mechanism, and capacity building or capability building for service delivery. Time-bound resolution is not one of them. These three are together considered as the components of the Sevottam model. All right, so this was about the citizens charter. The next part in today's class is about accountability. We have just completed the part on transparency. Now we'll be focusing on accountability. Now, in accountability, we will be majorly studying about the CAG. CAG is Comptroller and Auditor General of India. Now, please listen to this carefully. Comptroller and Auditor General of India. Many of you might have read about CAG in polity itself. If you have already read about this in polity, you have two options. You can leave the class, that is up to you. You can stay here and revise that, that is also up to you. If you have not read about this in polity, or if you have not read polity itself, then you can stay back. Either way, the choice is entirely yours. I leave it to you. So you, if you want, you can stay. If you want, you can leave as well. Anyway, so we'll be studying about the CAG because that is one single office that is responsible for keeping the government accountable, keeping the government in check. I hope all of you have at least heard of the word CAG. CAG stands for Comptroller and Auditor General of India. It is considered as the most important constitutional authority. In fact, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, in one of his speeches, said that the most important constitutional authority in India is the CAG. What does the CAG do? In simple terms, the CAG holds the government accountable for the government expenditure. Every single rupee that the government spends, the CAG has to audit that. The CAG can ask questions to the government about that. For example, let's say government goes to parliament and says that we need 10 crore rupees or 100 crore rupees to build a statue. CAG will then audit. They will see whether the money was spent in the right manner or not, whether 10 crore was spent, lesser or more was spent, how was it spent, so on and so forth. Everything will be seen by the CAG. Now, the interesting part is India, that is, took the office of the CAG from Britain, but with very interesting changes. Now, please understand this. This is important for you. So, although Indian CAG office is taken from the British CAG, but there are big differences. British CAG and Indian CAG. British CAG and Indian CAG, the first difference is British CAG is both a comptroller and auditor. In reality, the Indian CAG only has the role of a auditor. Now, please understand the difference here. What is a comptroller? Comptroller means someone who controls the finances. Please understand the difference. Comptroller means a person who has to give permission before the government can spend any money. Understand this. In Britain, before the government spends the money, the CAG must give permission. Without the permission of the CAG, in Britain, the government cannot spend any money. In India, that is not the case. In India, the job of the CAG only starts after the government has spent the money. Government does not have to ask for CAG permission before spending the money. In other words, the CAG in India can't stop the government from spending money. Whatever the government has to spend, they will spend. CAG will just look into whether it was legal or not, whether money was spent as per the law, whether it was spent in the right manner or not. That is what the CAG will look into. CAG cannot stop the government from spending any money. Please remember that. Now, why is it that Indian CAG also is called the comptroller? I don't know. They should have copied it in a better way. We just copied the entire name of British CAG but gave only half of the functions. Because in India, CAG does not have the function of a comptroller. Please understand. Second difference, British CAG is a part of their cabinet. British CAG is a part of the British cabinet only. So just like we have a cabinet, CAG is a part of the government, is a part of the cabinet. Basically, CAG in Britain is like a minister only. The CAG is like a minister only. In India, on the other hand, CAG is an independent constitutional authority. CAG is an independent constitutional authority. These are the big differences between the British CAG and the Indian CAG. Again, the British CAG has functions of both the comptroller and the auditor. Before the permission of the British CAG, the British government cannot spend even one single rupee. Indian CAG, on the other hand, cannot stop the government from spending any money. The role of Indian CAG only begins after the government has already spent the money. British CAG is a part of their cabinet, it's like a minister only. So he's a part of the government, does not stop the government from doing anything. In India, CAG is an independent constitutional authority. He is not a part of the ministry, he's not a part of the cabinet, he works independently. This is the CAG right now that we have, Mr. G.C. Murmu. Mr. G.C. Murmu, Girish Chandra Murmu is India's CAG right now. That is the Comptroller and the Auditor General of India. As I said, the most basic way to understand the office of the CAG or the work that they do is simple. Whatever the government of India does in terms of spending of the money, even one single rupee being spent by the government, the CAG will look into that. If the government says that we have spent 50 lakh rupees in buying new air conditioners for the parliament building, the CAG will look into all the bills. They will confirm whether this money was spent or not. They will confirm the receipt. They will see who got the bill or who got the money or not, were the ACs delivered or not. Every single thing will be checked by the CAG. Now, apart from CAG also, there are different ways in which accountability is maintained in India. Now, accountability in simple term means answerability. See, the idea is the government should be responsible, answerable for its deeds. If the government, for example, says that in the next 5 years I will do this, and if they do not achieve that, they should be answerable. They should answer why did they not achieve that. But everyone forgets about it. After the first wave of COVID ended, many ministers in India came out in the open and said after the first wave that we have conquered corona, world should learn from India, India is this, India is that, corona could not do anything to India. And then came the second wave, and the second wave, so many more people died, there were bodies everywhere, but again there was no statement from the government about the fact that we were wrong earlier. And again, this is not just about the present government. You will not see any government ever accepting responsibility for something wrong that has happened, because every government believes that accepting that they were wrong will be seen as a weakness. Just take this example. Since the history of independent India began, every government that fought election, every government that came to power said we will remove poverty. Every government said we will eliminate poverty. Now, over 75 years have passed after our independence. We still have a lot of poverty. Means somewhere down the line, the governments were not able to fulfill their promise, right? Somewhere down the line, the governments promised something else, but they were not able to achieve this. But have you seen any government saying that no, sorry, we were wrong, sorry, we were not able to achieve that? No, no government does that. That is where we have lack of accountability. Mokera, yes, we'll be studying about everything about the CAG in this lecture. Apart from the CAG, there are some other ways in which questions are asked to the government, like the Lokpal that holds the government responsible. We'll study about Lokpal later. Lokayuk at the state level. We have the Whistleblower Protection Act. We'll study about this later. All these are internal methods of keeping the government accountable. Internal means within the government. They are a part of the government. Then there are external methods of keeping the government accountable. External methods basically are elections, where externally, that is you, me, people can hold the government accountable. That is how accountability is maintained. Now let's focus on the CAG for a bit. It's a constitutional authority. It is the main auditor for the government. Article number 148 to 151 talk about the CAG, that is a comptroller and the auditor general. Let's start with the basics. The first important part about the CAG, or the first rather biggest controversy about the CAG, is about the appointment. Despite being such an important office, despite being called as the most important constitutional office by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, despite all of that, there is no appointment procedure. There is no appointment method as such, meaning that president appoints on the recommendation of the prime minister. That's it. There is no committee that has to be formed, no role of the opposition, no role of the judiciary. Except the government, no one plays any role here. Whatever recommendation or whatever idea that the president gets from the prime minister, that person is appointed as the CAG. Second big problem here is no exact qualifications. In most of the cases, you will see a senior IAS officer only being appointed as the CAG, but there are no specific qualifications. Now, for a post that is so important, for a post that is holding the government responsible, that is holding the government accountable, to not have a proper appointment procedure, to not have a proper qualification, this is just not good enough. There are so many questions asked over it by the court also, but again, no government has made any changes. The CAG, once appointed, is removed in the same manner as a Supreme Court judge. Since it is a constitutional office, their salary cannot be varied to their disadvantage, means it cannot be reduced during their tenure. They are not eligible for another term. Their salaries are charge expenditure on the Consolidated Fund of India. I hope all of you know what is a charge expenditure. Charge expenditure basically means that the parliament does not have to vote on it. Non-votable by the parliament. Means it is automatically deducted. Parliament cannot stop it. Now, the CAG also has a lot of people working for it. So, CAG is not alone. Don't imagine the CAG sitting alone in a room with a calculator and adding up everything and seeing what is happening here. No. CAG has thousands of people who work under him. There is a service of the government of India called IAAS. So when you clear this examination, the UPSC exam, there are multiple services to choose from. IAS, IPS, Foreign Service are the topmost one which people choose. Then there are also services such as IAAS, Indian Audits and Accounts Service. Those who choose this service after the UPSC examination, they work under the CAG. So remember, if you are working in the IAAS, you work under the CAG. All the officers of the IAAS service are under CAG. Conditions of service of these officers are prescribed by the president only after consultation with the CAG. Do remember this fact as well, that the CAG will tell the president the working conditions about the officers in IAAS, and they are then prescribed by the president. Now, over here in this statement, there's also a big controversy. Why? The problem is the CAG who is appointed at the top is always an IAS officer. Now, the officers who join this service, IAAS, are very, very, very disappointed and angry with the government. The reason for their anger, the reason for their disappointment is that all throughout their life they work under the CAG. But when it comes to taking the topmost post of the CAG, the government brings someone from the IAS cadre. That is again a big problem. And internally within the government, most of the other services don't like the IAS. Why? Because they think that the IAS officers go everywhere and then they are given preference by the government of India. That is not fair, because the government of India should not have IAS officers everywhere. In this service, for example, the IAAS officers, they believe that they should be the one who should be actually going to the topmost post, who should be the one who should be made the or appointed the CAG. But the government does not do that. The government trusts the IAS officers much more, and that is a big grudge that IAS officers have with the government of India. The CAG has a 6-year tenure and serves till retirement age, that is 65 years. Salary that they get is the same as a Supreme Court judge, and their conditions of service, their powers, etc., are all given in the CAG Act of 1971. So the Parliament can increase their powers, Parliament can increase their duties, etc. It has happened in the past that some changes have been made in the office of the CAG. For example, till the 1970s, CAG was also responsible for maintaining the accounts of India. That is the government of India's financial accounts. All the financial accounts of the government of India were maintained by the CAG till 1970s, but now that has changed. Now the CAG advises to the government in what format should you maintain the records, but the CAG does not maintain the record by itself now. Earlier, again, till 1970s, they used to maintain the records of the government of India, the financial records. Now they suggest how to maintain the records, but they don't do it by themselves. Why? Because this power or this duty was removed from this act. So Parliament from time to time can increase or decrease the duties and the powers of the CAG by making changes in this act. What are the important functions of the CAG? Auditing all the accounts of the government of India and the government of the states as well. Please remember, we do not have any parallel office or that is parallel to the CAG at the state level. There is one CAG only who works for the center and the state, both of them. Auditing all the accounts, consolidated fund, contingency fund, public account, all of these are audited by the CAG for both center and the state. Not just this, they also audit and report trading, manufacturing, profit loss account by the departments of the government of India. Apart from that, they also audit the stocks and stores. Means if the government, for example, says that in the parliament building we have 150 new air conditioners, CAG will keep an eye on that stock as well. Whether it is changing, whether after some years you don't have 150 ACs available, all that is done by the CAG. Some of the other functions, they also audit organizations which are substantially financed by the government. Again, the phrase substantially financed has not been defined here, but they again are under the CAG's purview. The CAG will look into that. The CAG, as I told you, advises the government the format in which they should maintain their account. CAG also audits PSUs, means public sector undertaking, that is the government companies. Apart from that, they also provide the net certificate, net proceeds certificate to the government of India. Now, what do you mean by this? See, every single year, when the budget is introduced, in the budget scheme, the government of India tells how much taxes has it collected. So every single year in the government scheme or in the government budget, the government will say, for example, that last year we received 5 lakh crore rupees taxes, or last year our income was 10 lakh crore rupees. So the government basically tells or announces how much money did it earn on the basis of taxes. That money that the government announces will only be considered as official figure if the CAG says yes. If the CAG says yes, if the CAG gives a proceed certificate, that is, the CAG has certified that yes, the government did receive this much money in the form of taxes. If this happens, only and only then that would be considered as official. Otherwise, it would not be considered as official. So please do remember that as well. Apart from that, the CAG helps the Finance Commission, because the Finance Commission wants to know the status of finances of the state governments. So CAG tells how much money the state governments have, how much money the state governments would require. On the basis of this, the Finance Commission will make its recommendations. CAG acts as guide, friend, and philosopher of the Public Account Committee of the Parliament as well. Now, please understand this. Let's imagine the CAG gives a report. In the report, the CAG says 500 crore rupees are missing. CAG says that there is no account of 500 crore rupees from the government of India. Now, what will happen next? Is it that the CAG will go to the court? No. CAG's job will end when they give the report. All the reports of the CAG are given to the President of India. The President of India will put these reports in the Parliament. And in the Parliament, these reports are discussed by the Public Account Committee. President gives the report in the Parliament. In the Parliament, we have the PAC, or the Public Account Committee. They are the ones who discuss this report. They are the ones who look into this report. That is why CAG is called as a friend, philosopher, and guide of the Public Account Committee. Because if the Public Account Committee wants any clarification about the report, wants any more details about the report, they will contact the CAG and the CAG will help them with all those things. Remember, CAG has no judicial powers. If the CAG has given the report and the report says that 500 crore rupees are missing, then what happens next? First option, if the government thinks that yes, something is wrong, the government can ask its agencies like CBI, etc., to conduct an inquiry. These agencies can use the report and then see if they can find out the truth or not. On the other hand, if the government thinks that no, nothing is wrong, CAG's report is not accurate, they may not take any action. In that case, opposition members can go to the court by saying that, oh, this is something the government is trying to hide, we should have it investigated. But in any of the cases, CAG has no judicial powers. They will not go to the court. It is upon the government, the opposition, they will decide what to do next with such reports. The CAG usually submits 3 reports to the president. First, appropriate account basically means spending. How much money has the government spent? Finance account, earning. How much money has the government earned? Public undertaking means report on government companies, their profit and loss statement, etc. These are the 3 types of reports that the CAG will submit to the President of India. They submit these reports both for the center and the state governments. Remember, if the CAG makes a report for the center government, they submit it to the President of India. When the CAG is making a report for the state government, then they will send it to the state governor. This is the difference. If a report is about the center government, it is sent to the President of India. President will send it in the Parliament. If the report is about the state government, the CAG sends a report to the governor. Governor will send it to the state assembly, where a discussion will happen on these reports. As I said, CAG works very closely with the Public Account Committee, the PAC. You should know Public Account Committee, it has 22 members, 15 from the Lok Sabha and 7 from the Rajya Sabha. It's a very old committee, came into being in 1919. Their idea is that they suggest to the government of India, or they look into the spending of the government of India mainly. CAG in their report can also give suggestions to the government, like suggestions about where not to spend money, suggestions about where is the area where the same job could have been done by spending lesser money, where the government should have negotiated more, so on and so forth. The CAG has all those suggestions also in their report. The Public Account Committee will look and see if these suggestions are being followed or not. Whether these suggestions are being followed, whether these suggestions are being accepted by the government or not. This is also something that the Public Account Committee looks into while addressing or discussing the report of the CAG. Vinod Rai is an earlier CAG. He was a CAG at the time of the Congress government when Manmohan Singh was a Prime Minister. He was a CAG when a lot of scams were released, were brought to the news by the CAG. You might have heard about the Commonwealth Games scam. You might have heard about the 2G scam. You might have heard about Colgate scam. All these scams came out when Vinod Rai was a CAG. Vinod Rai had suggested some of the reforms that CAG needs. For example, right now, any public private partnership, right now, any public private partnership basically means when the government and the private sector company works together. For example, as I told you earlier as well, for example, the making of the new parliament building, it was done by Tata company and the government of India together. So that is a public private partnership. Right now, no public private partnership can be audited by the CAG. Not just this, panchayats also cannot be audited by the CAG right now. They are audited by other auditors that the state government appoints. Vinod Rai suggested that PPP projects and Panchayati Raj institutions, they should also be audited by the CAG only. Next, CAG Act should be amended to ensure that new emerging technologies are used by the CAG to audit the government accounts, because see, every single year new technology emerges, government finds out new ways to make other expenditures, to hide expenditures. The CAG should have the power to ensure that all these things are kept in track. Apart from that, they all Vinod Rai also suggested that there should be a proper appointing committee for the CAG. As I told you earlier, CAG's appointment is done by the President of India on the advice of the Prime Minister. There is no qualification, there is no committee that is formed, no role of the opposition of the judiciary. That is something that he suggested should change. We should have a committee of 3 members or 5 members at least, have representation from opposition, from the judiciary to appoint the CAG rather than the government just appointing an IAS officer of their choice as the CAG. Okay, then let's see if you can answer this question. Read this carefully. It's a previous year question by UPSC. Sunny, yes, the CAG office is in Delhi, very near to the BJP head office. Okay, time now has started. The answer is D. 64% people got this side. Why is D wrong? As I told you earlier, CAG does not control issue of public money. In India, the CAG cannot stop the government from spending any money. The CAG does not control how the government shall spend any of its money. 1, 2, and 3 are right. Next question again, read this carefully. It's a question asked in 2012. And your time starts now. 51% people got this right. This is C. 2 and 3. Not a difficult question to answer. First statement, CAG has exchequer control on behalf of Parliament when emergency is declared. No. Nothing related to emergency is connected to CAG. CAG reports on execution of projects, etc., are discussed by public on committee, right? Information given by the CAG reports can be used by investigative agencies to, yes. CAG has no judicial powers. I have been repeating it time and time again. The job of the CAG ends when they submit the report to the President of India. After that, what happens? The CAG is not concerned with that. They don't have any judicial powers as such. The answer here is C, 2 and 3 only are correct. Now, as I discussed earlier, one of the biggest issues for the CAG is the issue of the appointment. That is, first, no qualification given. Second, no committee for appointment. Third, no role of opposition or judiciary. And also, most IAS officer or mostly IAS officers are appointed here. As I said earlier as well, every single political party, every single government has some favorite IAS officers that they usually want to appoint at these important positions. That is also problematic. When you have your favorite officers, you can't expect them to hold you accountable, hold you responsible. And that is why all these issues still remain. But again, these issues have not been addressed because every government in power behaves the same way. Every party in power would want officers who are favorable to them. Every party in power would want people who are well versed with them, who want to protect them. And that is why, despite all these being old issues, they have still not been addressed by any of the government, any of the parties in power. And these still remain. Uh, you can see here, lot of questions have been asked on appointment of CAGs in the past. Whenever the governments have appointed officers who have been close to them, political parties have preferred certain officers that they like. Like in 2013, government appointed Shashikant Mishra as the CAG. He was a defense secretary earlier and was handling many sensitive cases. When he was appointed, many well-known people filed a PIL in the Supreme Court also that he should not be appointed because of conflict of interest, but the court did not say anything. And this is not the only example. There are many other examples as well. Because of this, the number of reports submitted by the CAG has come down drastically. In the past 2 years, a lot of reports of the CAG that used to be submitted earlier, many of them have reduced drastically. So the prestige of the office of the CAG also is on the line because of this. From here, we will resume on Monday. From here, we'll resume on Monday. I have a few questions. I'll quickly take up your questions and then we'll wrap it up and meet again on Monday. Gunjan, CAG is an officer, CFI is a fund. How can you compare CAG and CFI? It's like saying, how is Sachin Tendulkar different from a chair? Not the same things, right? Kiran Kadak is saying, is there any instance of appointing officers other than IAS officers? No, Kiran. Only IAS officers so far have been appointed as a CAG, unfortunately. Lakshmi, audit report means if the government, for example, has spent the money, let's say they have spent 5,000 crore rupees on a statue, they will then look into whether or not 5,000 crore was spent, whether it was spent legally or not, whether it was spent in the right manner or not. That is the audit report. Shreyank, no, taxpayer charter is different from citizens charter. Then 2G scam was on presumptive loss. Now the government has removed. Yes. So what exactly is your question? I'm not sure what you're asking here. Lakshmi is saying, what is the meaning of accountability? Lakshmi, meaning of accountability is if you took some action and there was a wrong consequence of that action, you should be held responsible for it. You should hold the responsibility. Action should be taken against you. That is accountability. Priyanshu, contingency fund is a fund that the government of India has so that they can make emergency expenditure. Because from the consolidated fund of India to withdraw any money, they need Parliament's permission. If the Parliament is not in session, how will they spend any money? For that purpose, we have a separate fund called Contingency Fund of India. Kashish, yes. Pari, PPP audits are not done by the CAG right now. Ganesh, I don't know. This class is a weekday class, so the next class that we will have is on Monday. Devyani, yes, no exact qualification, so common man is also eligible to become the CAG. All the best. Maybe you are the best CAG. Maybe you are the next CAG. No, Gunjan, I'm not taking the PSI class on Saturday. Shabi, there is only one CAG. States don't have separate CAG. There is only one CAG of India appointed by the president only. Bhuvnesh, I don't have any tricks or tips to make notes on the PPT. PPT itself is notes only. So I'm not sure how do you make notes from notes. These are notes only. Lakshmi, college synopsis is not citizen starter. College synopsis is very different. Sunny Singh, I searched for CAG offices in states, found some are called PAG. I don't know, Sunny, what is PAG, but if CAG office don't exist in state, I'm not sure what you are searching for. Rashida is saying government promised 5 lakh employment last year. It is come under audit or not? Rashida, I don't think that will come under audit. It is about spending of the money. If the government did not spend any money, that is not under the auditing of the CAG. Anyways, let's end the class here then. Do revise over the weekend whatever we have studied. Try and see if you have any issues, and we'll be discussing that on Monday. Do come on time on Monday. I'll see you then at 6 a.m. Thank you so much. Bye bye. Jai Hind.